Episode number 93, Putting All the Puzzle Pieces Together, from Adam to AD70 to now. Text verses: Romans 2:14-15, Romans 5:12-19, 1 Corinthians 15:45, Acts 2:29-36, Hebrews 11:39-40, Matthew 24:34-1. Adam and the first problem. The story begins with Adam. When Adam sinned, sin and death entered the human race. This was humanity's problem, not merely Israel's. God had placed a moral law within mankind's heart and conscience, and all humanity came under sin and death. This became the first layer of the redemption story. 2. Abraham and the promise. God called Abraham and promised that through his seed all nations would be blessed. This promise was larger than Israel. It pointed to the restoration of humanity itself. The blessing promised to Abraham would eventually reach Jews and Gentiles alike. 3. Israel and the second problem. God later gave Israel the law through Moses. This was an external covenant law involving sacrifices, priests, temple worship, and covenant ordinances. This law was given only to Israel. The first problem involved humanity. The second problem involved covenant Israel. 4. The last Adam arrives. Jesus came as the last Adam to solve the problem introduced by the first Adam. At the cross and resurrection, he defeated sin and death and accomplished redemption. This fulfilled the promises connected to Adam and Abraham. The victory was invisible and spiritual, yet it affected the entire human race. 5. The Son of David and the Kingdom. Jesus was not only the last Adam, he was also the promised Son of David. Peter declared that God raised Jesus and seated him upon David's throne. Jesus began reigning as king from heaven. The throne was heavenly, and the kingdom everlasting. The first layer fulfilled the promises connected to humanity. The second layer fulfilled the promises connected to David and Israel. 6. Why AD70 was necessary. Although redemption had been accomplished, the old covenant system still remained standing. The temple still functioned. The sacrifices continued. The priesthood remained active. The shadows had not yet disappeared. God's plan required the visible removal of the old covenant world. 7. The disciples asked for signs. The disciples asked, "What shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the age?" If his coming was physically visible to all, signs would be unnecessary. They understood covenant judgment language. Therefore, Jesus gave visible signs pointing to an invisible coming. 8. The signs Jesus gave. Jesus listed false Christs, false prophets, wars, famines, pestilences, earthquakes, persecution, lawlessness, and the gospel reaching the Roman world. He spoke of the abomination of desolation, great tribulation, and finally Jerusalem surrounded by armies. Luke 21:20 states, "When ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh." 9. AD70 completed Israel's story. In AD70, the Romans surrounded Jerusalem. The temple was destroyed. The city was burned with fire. The priesthood ended. The sacrifices ceased. The old covenant age came to its end. This was not Adam's judgment. That had been solved through the cross. This was the fulfillment of everything connected to the law, temple, and covenant Israel. 10. The resurrection of the just and unjust. Jesus taught that all who were in the graves would hear his voice. This resurrection included believers and unbelievers, Jews and Gentiles. Jesus said the Queen of Sheba would rise and the men of Nineveh would rise. These Gentile examples show that resurrection was never limited to Israel alone. 11. The promises were fulfilled. The promises to Adam, Abraham, David, and Israel reached fulfillment in Christ. Adam's promise was fulfilled through the last Adam. Abraham's promise was fulfilled in the blessing of all nations. David's promise was fulfilled through Christ reigning on David's throne. Israel's promises were fulfilled in the new covenant kingdom. The earthly shadows pointed to heavenly realities. 12. The New Jerusalem is here. With the passing of Old Jerusalem, the New Jerusalem remained. With the passing of the Old Covenant, the New Covenant remained. With the passing of the shadows, the substance remained. Jesus came as promised. The resurrection occurred. The inheritance arrived. The New Jerusalem came down from heaven. The kingdom remains unshaken. 13. Put all the puzzle pieces together. Adam's problem was solved by the cross. The Son of David was enthroned as king. The Old Covenant age ended in AD70. The resurrection was completed. The inheritance arrived. The New Jerusalem remained. The Old Covenant world passed away. The message of Jesus and the apostles consistently moved believers from visible shadows to invisible realities. If someone continues waiting for physical fulfillments of realities already fulfilled in the spiritual realm, they will continue waiting forever. Put all the puzzle pieces together. Live in the fulfilled kingdom. Live in the New Jerusalem. Live in the inheritance. Live in the now. Though man chose freely, God's sovereign purpose reached its appointed end.